For Amber Live fans, the name Josh Brandon from Tennessee should sound familiar. He was first interviewed here a few months ago when we talked about his podcast, his marketing campaign to discourage people from spending tourist dollars in his state, his music, and, well, as his activism for the GLBTQ plus community. He has a new book and a new song, and we can't wait to talk about it. Josh, come on in.
Thanks for having me again.
Oh, Josh, always welcome to have guests back. All right, the last time we talked, the Tennessee legislature was on steroids with their anti-drag, anti-trans legislation. What's going on there now?
You know, we seem to have had a little bit of a slowdown as far as the really oppressive stuff. You know, some judges have overturned some stuff, stayed some of that legislation. So as I expected, I thought a lot of that over the last 8-9 months was a little bit strategic, maybe performative for some governmental reasons. But, you know, I'm not saying that Tennessee has gotten any easier for marginalized communities to be in, but, you know, we're not having the threat of some pretty crushing legislation as much as we were 6 months ago.
Do you see a resurgence of any of that? Or do you think, well, they tried, they failed, they'll move on to something else?
You know, it's, I think it'll still rear its ugly head, so long as, you know, the conservatives in this state are in charge and feel like they can bully whomever they want, then, you know, it's still a threat. So we're keeping our ears to the ground, and, you know, surrounding states are calling on us sometimes to come in, you know, assist when we can. So
do you get a sense that the tide has turned, or they're just a quiet before another storm?
Both, I think. I think it is a quiet before the storm. I don't think the opposition will go down, you know, without swinging pretty hard. But I also feel like all of those antics, not just in Tennessee, but across the country, have awakened a lot of people and united many groups, many of those complacent voters who probably wouldn't have thought much of it because they live in maybe a comfortable blue state. But you know, they see what's happening around the country, and it's not just a Mason-Dixon line thing. So it hits home wherever you are.
Well, that's great. That is great. All right. So you have a new song. Tell me about your new song.
Well, you know, I worked in country radio for the better part of like maybe 15, 20 years or so. And when all this Jason Aldean drama came out, it made me think about all those songs in country music that I played over the years that I didn't see necessarily as dangerous. But that song in particular, in today's atmosphere, is.
Okay, let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
Some of my viewers might have heard of Jason Aldean and of the song. Can you explain how you feel that song is interpreted?
Well, you know, first of all, it's country music, and there are some dog whistly undertones just by the nature of it. You know, we haven't fixed that problem, so that problem still exists. What I suggest is taking that and set it on the shelf to the side, because it just is. If we can get past the dog whistly racial stuff, then it's still about inciting violence and this sociopathic type. By God, if they pull in my driveway, I'll ... you know, and we don't often think in my culture down here in the South, or maybe where you are either, that we'll finish the sentence. Well, what are you going to do if they come in your yard? What exactly, step by step, are you going to do? And the song that I wrote, called Small Town, under the Sir Talks-A-Lot moniker, that song for me is a far more accurate depiction of what you get in a small town. It's not always. I mean, there's some charming, good things about small town community, but when I'm standing on the street in the city and there's a drag show, the people that come to protest that aren't coming from the city. They're coming from a small town into the city. They're coming into town to protest, to carry their hateful signs and shout their hateful rhetoric. Those people that insurrected our capital, they weren't from DC. They came from around. Charlottesville, Virginia is one of the most beautiful, welcoming, and progressive cities in America. So the people that came there to cause all that havoc several years ago, they didn't come from the city. They came from the small towns and came in. So my song is sort of a clapback to Jason Aldean's song. His, I felt, was very dangerous, very reckless. It's talking about, you try that in a small town and try to spit in the cop's face and you won't get away with it. And he's very right. Small towns can be very dangerous and very violent, but mine paints a more accurate picture of what that danger and what that violence is.
Let's take a listen to your song.
And their feelings on full display. To a proud, bloodthirsty, unashamed hunting humans is the way they was raised. They boast and they brag about what they want to do, looking for any chance to come unglued, to get away with murder while they back the blue. Licking boots is what they's raised to do. If you step in their yard, you won't make it out alive. If you tread on their small minds, you'll be terrorized. Pretend to praise their guns, their God and their pride, while the NRA, their preachers and their leaders lie. That's what you get in a small town. 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 They erupt in rage, crying about the riots that they all staged, loading their guns, dressed in black, belly stick, body armor on the attack, breaking windows, throwing bricks. Look, it's Antifa, lying son of a bitch, taking life with no regard, entitled as hell, you bigot Beauregard. If you ain't like them, you better hide. If you tread on their small minds, you'll be terrorized. Pretend to praise their guns, their God and their pride, while the NRA, their preachers and their leaders lie. That's what you get in a small town. Lynching, attack dogs, police, water hoses, whitewashing history so the grandkids won't notice. Passing laws just to tear us down. Church and Nazi rallies, terrifying towns. Some people are right, but many are silent. Some people are right, but many are silent. People are right, but many are silent. People are frightened, so many are silent. People are frightened, so many are silent. People are frightened, so many are silent.
Too many are silent, but you aren't. How did you come about writing that song? How long did it take to put it together?
2 hours. You live about 2 hours altogether. I wrote the song. It's a beautiful thing about having the tools in front of you to be able to create. There was a time when a song would pop into my head and I would just sing it for a few hours and it would go away, but now I can record it and all that. I started thinking about the song in music-wise, so I wanted something that had sort of a kind of a country groove, but something that was hybrid with a few other things. I like percussion, and so I kind of just started mixing the music together, and it kind of got a groove. And then I just started writing the words, and I had the ideas. And spoilers, in the video, there's a cameo by one of the white supremacists that's trying to unalive me.
Very nice, very nice. What's been the reaction to the song? How is it being produced or put out in the air?
It's good. The video's on YouTube and on my website, joshbrandonmedia.com. I've got the single version on iTunes and let's see, iTunes, where else? Spotify, wherever music goes. So you can use it on TikTok if you want to use it as a sound. I'm going to start launching a campaign where people use that song and just shoot video of stuff that happens in their small town, So,
well, that sounds great.
Yeah, it's been very positive so far. A lot of the people that don't like me obviously don't like the song, but they're the ones I'm talking about. So surprise. But overall, it's been very positive. So,
how much of the images were yours that you create?
That's part of it. When I looked at Jason Aldean's video, a lot of that was stock footage. So initially my first thought was, let me just put together a video using exclusively stock footage, but make sure the stock footage is all from America. And some of it was, but then I started looking for actual protest footage, and I'm like, I have a lot of that on my computer. So I pulled a few things from downtown Knoxville right before Christmas. We were doing a show, and a bunch of people came out to protest and counter protest. I pulled up something from the January 22nd Cookeville action, where the Raw Story article we talked about in the last interview was from.
Yep.
So a lot, it's just different stuff. And January 6th footage, just the January 6th footage actually just happened to be the guy in the mask and the gas mask. That's the same guy from the very beginning of the interview that's flipping the bird. And that's the guy that's been plotting against me and stuff. So I thought, he just sort of hit a triple crown there. He was there at the protest, he was there at the insurrection, and now he's in my video. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right. Tell me about your new book.
Oh, so I have several books coming out, and so they're all based around my show, Overthinking Everything. And the first few books are going to be about self-help, self-improvement. And I put out this book. It's Overthinking Everything About You, a compassion and critical thinking workbook. It's an easy read. It's bigger print. You know what I mean? You don't have to put glasses on. And most of this is fill-in, like journal exercise. So you can it's designed so you can write in it and fill it out, and then buy multiple copies to do it again and again and again. I started thinking about my message overall and what I'm trying to get across. And I really felt like the two things to address were critical thinking, because I think that's really what's missing in society today, and compassion. And those are two things that we all need to practice. Even those of us who are normally compassionate, we lose our cool. So I wrote this book initially as sort of a fresher kind of, I don't know, you go through and just do the book and recharge yourself. But as I started writing it and putting out the materials to get it ready for release, it kind of hit me. This is a separation letter. This is the, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Here, when you're done with this book, would you please complete this and call me? When you feel like you've done these exercises, maybe we can have another conversation. So it's sort of that passive aggressive gag gift too, get it to the person you think needs this more than anything. But in there's exercises that kind of get you back into thinking less judgmentally and more critically about other people.
Give me an example.
Well, if you're in traffic, it's easy for us to be in today to make it to this interview. I was driving across traffic and I hit traffic all the way. And it's easy to be caught up in this thing. I'm running late. I've got obligations. I'm not where I should be. And my day got away from me. And we tend to make that other people's problem. And just like the guy that cuts me off in traffic, he makes his thing about my, it's my problem now because he's cut me off and I had to slam on my brakes, So it's really about trying to recenter yourself into that compassionate mindset to where we get back to benefit of doubt. That's the first thing that goes, right? Whenever that person pulls in front of us, he's a jerk. They're this, they're that, you're flipping birds, you're shouting. Even if you don't put any of that out to anyone else, it's internal and you're, discombobulated. So in this book, it's sort of a reminder to start seeing people as people again, even the people that wronged you. Because the peace and forgiveness comes, for you, not so much for them, so that you can have peace. And the critical thinking, those exercises are geared more toward trying to deconstruct a headline. We get these stories in. When you texted me about, some of the news and the indictments and everything, and I pulled the headline up, and I saw what you were talking about. So when I see a headline, those headlines are usually geared to your algorithm. You know, like if you open more of these stories, you'll see more of these stories. So the exercises in this book are about taking that headline, breaking it down in different ways to see how differently it can be taken, as an understanding of how far we can be apart on opinions. One headline, two people read it completely different ways. So if you know how to do that, if you know how many different ways one sentence, one headline can be taken, then it helps you navigate other people and their opinions, if that makes sense. Not necessarily to disprove anybody or to debate anybody, but going through these, looking at synonyms, looking at the telephone game. Like, take this idea and tell it to me three different ways, you know, but tell it to me using words that sound similar but aren't. So it's just a really interesting way to come away from this and look and say, oh, wow, you know, it's not just all about the way I see things. There are many different ways to see things, right, wrong, you know, whatever it is. So if for somebody who needs the reminder, then it's a good introduction to the books that I've got coming out later this year. But as somebody who is completely devoid of compassion and critical thinking skills, it makes a heck of a gift.
What got you started on this? What did you wake up one morning and go, I need self-help, so I'm going to write a book about it? Or where's it come from?
So much of what I do is so pointed. You know, my TikTok content, it's sort of sharp and sarcastic. You know, I have a little more fun with that than I do overthinking everything, as far as, you know, making my points. But with this, I really wanted to leave something out in the world that was positive, something that was, well, I'm like breakfast cereal, right? The crusty, shredded, weedy side of me says that each and every single Republican voter supported the insurrection and gave us what we have today. But the sugary, frosted side says, show compassion. Then that's your frosted mini wheat reference of the day. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
I wanted to do some things that were about recentering yourself. My podcast theme is deconstructing a culture of cultism. So in the book, I start really talking about the introductions of deconstructing your trauma, deconstructing your ideas. And the next book that'll be out later September, it's going to be about techniques and philosophy. You know, it's going to be a full, proper self-help book, you know, probably 3 or 4 times the size. But this is sort of the prequel that gets you back into the mindset of being compassionate and thinking critically, and gets you primed and ready for the big self-help whammy that's coming.
Are you self-publishing these?
I am, for now. I've got some other stuff that I'm working on as far as video content, workshops, and all that stuff. So all of that's going to be done through my website. The books are going to be on Amazon until I score that big book deal. So, yeah, we'll see.
Okay, the next one you said is going to be a larger book. Do you have anything else coming up?
I do. I'm working on, all the books are based on the themes that I've covered in Overthinking Everything. So I've been exploring pop culture. I've been exploring things that, the dumbing down and numbing down of society, the ethical integrity of America and where did it go wrong, cancel culture. There's so many different topics that I'm going to write about. And it's one of those things I kind of encourage people to do too, because like, this was just the first book, and it's not even a really thick book. Like, it's a workbook, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a James Patterson novel. It, you know, just if you've got something to say it, put it in a book. And I have literally dozens of books in my planner that I'm working on, and they won't take very long to put together. But with those books, just like with this one, I'll have video series and workshops and different things that people can participate in, and I don't know, try to just live a better, healthier life. I don't know about you. I've been through a lot. Mm-hmm. My life hasn't been easy. There's been a lot of trauma, And I could look around me and see that there are a lot of people who share that journey. And I think it's selfish of me to not give the answers to the test if I have some. So, that's basically what the books are. And the next book series will be based on the episodes of my show, The Human Hat Rack, The Human Mathematical Equation, The Peril of Perspective, and CUPS, which is an acronym. So taking a few of those introspective self-help, self-betterment ideas and putting them in a book.
All right, CUPS is an acronym.
CUPS is, there's no spoilers, it's already in the episode.
Okay.
CUPS is a method that I use to recenter myself very much in the same way of the Compassion and Critical Thinking Workbook. We start with compassion, which leads us to understanding, which leads us to a greater perspective, and that leads us to a final output of support. That's
CUPS.
Essentially where we want to end up.
That's CUPS.
Yep, compassion, understanding, perspective, and support. And that book will be out September. So,
well, Josh, thank you so much. I so admire it's not so much entrepreneurship, but just how you put all of your interests and your talents and into a focused goal, and that's very much to be admired. So, thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you and appreciate what you do, Amber.
Thank you very much. All right. I love talking and listening to Josh. I think he'll be back.